Mary Poppins Returns is the sequel to the 1964 Disney classic Mary Poppins, and it stars Emily Blunt, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Ben Whishaw, Emily Mortimer, Julie Walters, Dick Van Dyke, Angela Lansbury, Colin Firth, and Meryl Streep. So Mary Poppins Returns basically takes place 30 years after the events of the original Mary Poppins. It's 1935, it's the Great Depression, and it once again focuses on Michael and Jane Banks, except this time they're all grown up, and Michael's family is going through a tough time because his wife passed away and his family's losing financial loans over his house, and that's when Mary Poppins comes in once again to bring happiness into the family's lives. Honestly, what else can you say about the original Mary Poppins that already has been said? It's a timeless classic. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. When I heard Disney was making a sequel to Mary Poppins, I was very, very scared. Because as we all know, like I said, the original Mary Poppins is a beloved classic. Making a sequel to Mary Poppins is like making a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. It's very hard to replicate what makes it timeless and so beloved by millions. Now, I did walk into Mary Poppins Returns with some optimism, but I did walk in with some concerns. Like, number one, it's a sequel, and just recently, Disney has been releasing a ton of sequels, remakes, and reboots, and honestly, it's getting to a point where we're basically just getting used to it by now. And like I said, it's the sequel to Mary Poppins. It's one of those movies that's perfect the way it is, and you should not touch it. And now that I've seen Mary Poppins Returns, I have to say this. Guys, this actually might be one of my favorite movies of the year. Like I said, I walked into Mary Poppins Returns skeptical, but what I got out of it was a delightful, wonderful, and very fun sequel. So let's start with the performances. So Julie Andrews is not playing Mary Poppins. She is instead played by Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt did a phenomenal job playing Mary Poppins. When it was announced that Emily Blunt was playing Mary Poppins, I was very skeptical because Julie Andrews, as we all know, is Mary Poppins, and she always will be. She is to Mary Poppins what Harrison Ford is to Indiana Jones. And she knocked it out of the park in this movie. And honestly, she did at some moments felt like Julie Andrews because she did a great job recapturing the spirit and fun of the character. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, who we all know created probably the biggest show on Broadway ever, Hamilton, plays the streetlighter Jack. And he was so much fun in this movie. And every time he was on screen, he was just having a ball in this movie. And he did have a little rap in him at some parts. It's not like, no, it's not like that. But like, if you listen to some of the songs from Hamilton, then he does kind of have like a wink to like what he did with some of those songs. One performance in this movie that I do not want to get overlooked is Ben Whishaw, aka Paddington. He plays Michael, and he was fantastic in this movie. Like, he was great during the emotional scenes, and he actually did kind of have some scenes where I started to tear up a little bit. And the visuals in this movie were absolutely wonderful. The style of the movie basically felt like a movie that came out back in a time period when the original Mary Poppins came out. It did a great job being like an old school musical type movie, and there is a sequence in this movie, just like the original Mary Poppins, where it's all 2D animation, and it was absolutely wonderful. And it's so refreshing and satisfying to see Disney bring back 2D animation, because recently they've been making so many movies with CGI animation. And while it's not a bad thing, it's just so great to see 2D animation rise up again after so long. And the songs are really good songs. I will say this about the songs though. They're not as catchy as the songs from the original Mary Poppins, because those are some of the best songs in Disney history, like Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and Shim Shim Cherie and Feed the Birds. But still, the songs are really good. And I can't imagine the soundtrack getting overplayed to death as the Greatest Showman soundtrack, but unpopular opinion, but I think Mary Poppins Returns soundtrack is a much better soundtrack than the Greatest Showman soundtrack. I will say this. If you saw the trailers for Mary Poppins Returns and your reaction was basically, oh, this was like a rehash of the original, it's just a repeat, nothing new, we've seen this all before. The trailers were misleading. The story on paper, while it does seem like a rehash of the original, when you go see the movie, it's not a rehash, it's not a repeat, it's not a cash grab. It's taking the story in a new direction. And while the story does borrow elements from the original Mary Poppins, it's not a rehash. And as for nitpicks, I have maybe like 2 total. So basically, like I said, the songs, while they are really good songs, I can't imagine them getting like overplayed to death, or like they won't go down in history as some of the best Disney songs of all time. And the story, while it is doing something new, it does borrow elements from the original, like I said, and there will be some moments where you'll be like, that reminds me of the original. I remember that. But one thing is for sure, it doesn't shove nostalgia down your throat. Like, hey, remember this stuff? Remember this? It doesn't do that. So do not fret. It does not shove nostalgia down your throat. So overall, guys, I honestly enjoyed the crap out of Mary Poppins Returns. Yeah, it's not quite as good as the original, but other than that, it's a delightful sequel that respects and recaptures the magic and spirit of the original. I give Mary Poppins Returns an A-. So what are your thoughts on Mary Poppins Returns? Whatever they are, just comment below. And if you want to see more of my videos, just be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more great content.